get into it.
Got it.
Okay. Well, Kristin, I'm so glad we both rallied. We were just talking about how we're like, no, let's not. Let's no, no, you know. It's Wednesday and it's been a long week. I don't know about what's going on in your life. You're not sure what's going on in my life, but I'm glad we both rallied to record this episode of Parenting with Heart because I think it's a really important subject that you brought up in the parenting village. And it's something that I think I was always really flippant about the phrase mom guilt
Mhm.
before I was a mom. I don't know
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah, I would say that. And I think there's almost like a societal expectation that there is mom guilt. That because I feel like a lot of moms just throw it around as like, oh, it's mom guilt.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm going to go out to lunch with my friends. Oh, but I have guilt. Why? Why? Why should anyone have guilt about going out to lunch with their friends and leaving their husband, very capable husbands, and their children together for an hour and a half or 2 hours? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there is, well, I think in the mom space, there's a lot of, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but there's that push and pull, that judgment, guilt. Um, am I one of those moms who goes out with her girlfriends and lunches and leaves the kids at home with a babysitter and is totally fine with it? And you've got those other moms who would love to do that, and they have the jealousy and the envy of being able of other women who can go do that. And I
Right.
feel like with that, then because we have these conversations with each other at the park and play dates and all that other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of, in order to kind of pacify everybody and be like, oh, I just felt so guilty leaving him at home. I think we just kind of like add that guilt there as a like excuse.
Yeah, I think so. Either to avoid doing something or to do something and like, I don't know, feel like you're a bad girl.
Yeah, or even like maybe I'm supposed to feel guilty
Yes,
every
yes,
time I leave
exactly.
my kids
That's
and I
that's
don't.
that's a better expression. Yeah. Well, I think it's crazy that oh, for instance, I was talking to a friend of mine. Okay. So, friends, you're listening to Parenting with Heart, and we're about to get into it for real. But before we do, I just want to let you know that we're here talking with Kristin Schmoke, parenting coach, and she's here to offer you advice, suggestions, and answer questions to give you a more happy and harmonious life in your home. I'm Monica, one of two Monicas in a microphone. And, Kristin is here to just be of service to everybody and to keep you from yelling at your kids, to give you a more grounded sense of how kids develop. And she's not only a friend of mine, but she has a master's in elementary education. She's a certified parenting coach and a mom of four. And basically, Parenting with Heart wants to be your one stop shop for nuggets of information to make your journey as a parent easier. Um, so, guilt, it's a big one. And your
For sure.
post in the Parenting Village on Facebook got a lot of comments. And it's funny that you mentioned, a friend saying something because I was just talking to my friend Grasa and she told her mom, mind you, her mom is like 89 and she lives in Portugal. She told her mother that she was going to go away for like 3.5, 4 days with a couple of other women to celebrate a friend's birthday. And
Mhm.
her mom has not let up making her feel guilty for
Right.
leaving her two children and her very capable husband.
Yep. Yeah, there's some really deep seated uh, old thoughts there
Yeah.
on leaving your children, and husbands and fathers are not capable, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure in some cases that's very valid.
Mm-hmm.
um but women should be uplifting each other and celebrating the fact that you're going to go take care of yourself so you can be a better mother,
Right.
rather than really tearing you down and making you feel worse about the decision that was probably already a hard decision to come to as it is. Because I don't know about you, but when I went away for this past weekend, I was gone just over 24 hours and I already had like the logistics all like lined
Oh,
up,
Paul and I
planned
have
out,
had
and I
this
made it
the
so easy.
conversation. Yeah.
I made it so easy for my kids and my husband that were left here. Um, and yeah, while I was gone visiting my other child who was off at college, I felt guilty for leaving the other three at home. So I think there's enough natural guilt there that you certainly don't need somebody else piling it on top. And
No, no.
some moms are really good at doing that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So some are friends. Some friends are too.
I think my mom, she was giving me a little bit of guilt because I'm taking a trip. I leave tomorrow.
Yeah.
And when I said, hey, look, I have this opportunity, she was like, really? You're going to do that? I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why wouldn't I do that?
For sure. For sure.
Like, Paul is the unicorn husband. I come home to a very clean, very tidy, well kept household, and the kids, he does an amazing job with them. I'm like, if I were worried that he couldn't accomplish all of that, now granted, I have the schedule up in my head, so that I've had to write down and
Yep.
send emails and, you know, but no, I started feeling guilty. I was like, oh, I wasn't feeling guilty when I accepted the offer.
Yeah. Why is that? I don't know. And all I can figure is that it's a habit that's been passed down from generation to generation, that perhaps your mom was made to feel guilty by her mom.
Sure.
Um, and if she had ever wanted to go away without her children, and maybe there's a little bit of a little twinge of jealousy because she never got to do that. Um, but definitely guilt carries two things. It carries shame and carries burden. So those are like
Mm,
the messages it kind of carries. And all I can say to you is like guilt is a heavy thing to carry around.
yeah,
Like
it really is. So let's
like
get into
put it down.
the parenting village, the conversation that you started about
Sure.
guilt. Are there situations where you feel guilt? And one person commented that, yes, it's after an argument or disagreement.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think that's definitely very valid, especially if you feel like you're in the wrong
I would not
or
even say
picking the
if you were
fight.
in the
Like I I I'm guilty of picking a fight.
yeah, for sure. I would say it's probably falls more on like how did you behave during it?
Sure.
Were you behaving as your best self? Um, was it an argument where you're screaming and yelling and then you said things that you weren't even feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Or were you able to be composed and have a rational conversation? But then it's a conversation, it's not an argument.
Right.
You can have disagreement peacefully, but if it's an argument, typically emotions are elevated, voices are elevated, and you walk away with guilt because you didn't behave the way you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's very valid because you're like, I could have been a better person, but now I feel guilty because I wasn't the better person or the person
Or
that I know I can be.
or even like I feel guilty because I didn't say this. I said this
Mm-hmm.
instead. And I know like that's my personal habit is to go, oh, like I'll rehash something and be like, oh, I should have said that. Now there's the flip side of like I could have said that. That would have been a great zinger.
Yeah.
but but there's always that like, I didn't express myself clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I just got really frustrated and yelled.
Yelled, and then I'm like, I'm going to bed. You go sleep on the couch. And by that I mean I'm talking to the dog. Like
Right.
he's not allowed in the bed. Um, but the next question was, is guilt good or bad and why? And
Yeah.
you had a lot of great comments
Mhm.
on this question. So a mutual friend of ours uh, responded that guilt is good because it's convicting. Shame is bad because it's condemning.
I
And
love that.
that really resonated with me. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Like if I feel guilty because of, I've lost my temper with my children, right? Because they haven't listened to me 17 times in a row, or I lost my temper with my husband because I've just had a day with the kids. Um, that's good because I recognize that I need to do something to tweak my own behavior and my own emotions.
Mhm.
But shame, I mean, if the guilt is about shame, I don't know what to do with that. Can you help me with that?
Yeah. So I like to think of guilt as like if you're doing something yourself and you're guilty, is it your moral compass that has been set off, right? So
Okay.
that's where that condemning or that conviction part comes from, right? Like you're
Okay.
like, "Oh, I've kind of lost my way." But then that shame component, yeah, like I wasn't my best self, whether it was in an argument or I let my 5-year-old goat me into a fight, into a yelling argument. I totally lost my cool and basically behaved like a toddler. That's guilt, right? You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I've gone off track from what I would like to say is my best self. What do we do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I talk about like just carrying that guilt is too heavy and doing nothing about it is what makes it heavy. So what do we do about it? We go and repair the relationship. The biggest
Okay.
thing you can do is apologize. And you're going to release that. Now, maybe you might hold on to it for a little bit longer. So there's the second component, which is really important to apologize and then say what you would like to do differently to that person.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had done this. Next time I'll try to do XYZ instead. I'm really sorry that happened. And that can be really hard because you have to admit to wrongdoing. There's some ego involved there,
Right.
and the ego doesn't like to be wrong. So yeah, you kind of got to suck it up. And when I deal with young children, a lot of times just saying the words "I'm sorry" aren't always available to them. So I have them do a fist bump, a high five, a hug,
Right.
but I offer them a choice.
I've taken
But
that from you from other conversations that we've had, and my kids, they fight nonstop.
yeah,
And just literally today, something happened. I was like, okay, Logan, you need to make it right with Sienna. Like, and he said, I'm sorry, but he really didn't mean it. I'm like, okay, I'm not taking that. That's not going to make the situation right. Like, give her a fist bump, a high five, a hug, take a minute because she didn't want to hear I'm sorry right away.
yeah,
She didn't want
yeah.
to accept it and he didn't mean it.
Well, okay, so sidetrack here. It's a quick detour.
Mm-hmm.
He never acknowledged the way she was feeling.
No. And so,
That's why there's
it,
that disconnect.
yes. And
And
so
you,
after he said, I'm sorry, the first time I was like, okay, so then I backtracked
yeah,
and I was like, hey, do you see how she's feeling? Do you understand? Like,
look at her
can you,
body.
exactly.
Look at her face. How is she
Mm-hmm.
feeling?
Yeah,
Sienna, tell Logan how you're feeling. Logan, I didn't like it when, and
it,
then she'll take it from there. Logan,
exactly.
do you hear her words? Yes.
After that, it was a much easier transition to
Yep.
the repair.
What can you do better next time? What could you do differently next time?
How
And
about
that's
just
where
don't stick
part of
your
that
tongue out?
That's where part of the repair comes from. Oh, these are lessons. These are lessons. You'd rather have them learn it at 5 than at 25.
Yeah.
Um, and so he said, I'm sorry, and he didn't mean it because he
No.
really was sorry because he was
No.
mad about whatever happened, or
Mm-hmm.
like I don't even know the scenario, but oftentimes he's not sorry, he's not aware of what happened, or he's not he doesn't think he's at fault for what happened, or he's mad about something she did to him and he did it in retaliation. Um,
Always.
anyways, where was I going with that?
I don't know. We
I don't know.
seem to get sidetracked talking about my kids all the
I
time,
don't
which I apologize.
know.
But obviously, I need help, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. Um, let's keep going with the Parenting Village posts because guilt and how you get over it is, I think it's an issue for a lot of parents.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about how you got into it. You got
Okay.
into it by poor behavior and poor choices, right?
Okay.
How do we avoid that? Well, self-care. Problem is, as women in 2023, when we do self-care, other people condemn us for it, and
You
we
feel
have
guilty for taking
guilt
a long
for taking
bath.
care of ourselves, and therefore we just are constant in a guilt cycle. And at
No,
some
it's so
point, you
true.
have to decide if you care what other people think of or say about you. I always loved Rachel Hollis, like back in the day. I loved her when she first came out, and she said, "You are giving people in the cheap seats VIP passes to your life." And
Yeah,
that
my dad calls
stuck
it letting someone live rent free in your head.
for sure. Same.
And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're letting so and so live rent free in your head. I'm like, Dad, no, I'm old now. I know better. He's like, yeah.
But we still have lessons to learn, right? And
Mhm.
in ways that we are still yet not free. And this is a big one for a lot of people, is getting out of that guilt cycle and realizing, no, if I take care of me, my family is better for it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Now, I'm not talking about going to Bora Bora for 2 weeks. I'm
Oh, I'm
talking
going on a
about,
cruise.
I
I'm not.
mean, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not condemning people who do go on vacations or trips without their children. That's fine. I'm talking about the little daily acts, the
Sure.
little things you can do in the moment to right yourself, right your ship, get you back on track. Um, Things that you can do, and I think that's a problem. People think that self-care is a massage, a trip to Bora Bora, um, wine night with the girls, things that cost a lot of money. And really, self-care is more about tuning into you and checking in with your emotions and how am I feeling right now? And do I need a break or do I need to deal with this right now? I
Mhm.
always tell parents that parenthood is not an emergency unless it's actually an emergency, but stop treating it every act like it's an emergency. It
Like
doesn't have to
sometimes
be
you just
dealt with
need a
big
bath.
emotions and worse and fear, and not everything has to be a lesson.
Yeah,
You can pause and say, you know what, I need a minute. I'm, I'm going to be right back. And I don't care if your child is 3 or 2 or 1. Don't give me this. I can't because I have a toddler. You can take a break. And if your
Mhm.
child is not able, then that's a different story we have to have. We have
Mhm.
to set you up to be able to have a minute to go to the bathroom
Yeah.
so you
Oh,
can breathe and reset yourself so that you don't have to feel that guilt. So you can do what feels right for you so you can get a good night's rest. Do what feels right for you so you can
sure.
feel full and human again. Because there's so many years where you feel like a shell.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Why do
A
we
shell.
give? And we need to give to ourselves too. Have a little compassion. So give to yourself, and that way you can be a better mom. And you can drop that guilt when you take care of yourself.
I would agree. I mean, sometimes it feels guilty to just take an extra long bath, you know, and leave the laundry piled up. I'm like, I hate laundry. Just like the folding. Okay. I don't mind switching from the washer to the dryer, but the folding and all that stuff. If if
Just
I
just off screen, I've got a giant pile sitting here on my floor that's like procreating, and it's already clean. I haven't put it away. This is it. We're
it's
digging through the
totally fine.
pile for the clothes
It's
right now.
it's totally fine. It's totally fine. And
It's
it's
okay, and you
clean.
have to decide what you're going to let go.
Yes.
Because we can't do everything. We are not super, I mean, we are amazing humans and we can do a lot, but we are not meant to be everything for everyone. So figure out what it is you're going to cut and um where you can give a little bit. Your house doesn't have to be Instagram ready at all times, because I promise you, even those Instagram people only have a corner of their house that are ready unless they've got full-time cleaning, because they're lying.
Yeah.
Most things on social media are lying. Your
It's fake.
friends, they don't invite you over to their house for a reason until they've cleaned, because they
Yeah.
want you to believe that they've got it all together. They don't. Find yourself a friend who's got a messy house. That's where the real person is.
Totally, totally true.
You
I mean,
will
I miss
lose
my
your
friends
guilt.
in St. Louis because of that, because they'd come over and we eventually reached the point where I'm like, I don't need to clean for you. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. When you have good enough friends that you don't have to clean for them, those are the people that you need to hang out with. Those are your people.
And Paul and I have the conversation pretty regularly. He really likes a clean sink and like a clean kitchen. He likes all this stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's one of those things I don't care about. If I'm
Yeah.
tired, if I've done all the other things, I'm good. I'm not going to have guilt about a few dishes in the sink,
Yeah.
because let's face it, the other conversation is, hey, I went from being a single person taking care of me, myself, and I, doing my own dishes, my own laundry, and cleaning my like 1 bedroom apartment. And now I take care of 4 people
Mm-hmm.
and 4 dishes and a dog. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why do I feel guilty that it's not all done? I don't know. I don't know.
Listen, when you're raising kids, it's never going to be all done. And like I've heard, it's like shoveling in a snowstorm, right? Because if you clean one area, it's messing up in another. And what you're actually doing is missing out on the important things. A clean house is not an important thing. I mean, within reason.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes, within reason.
I've seen some
There's
extreme.
there's tidy and there's clean and then there's oh,
I mean, I'm not talking hoarder status.
right,
I'm
right,
I'm just talking in general. It's okay if you don't clean your house every week because you can't get to it. It's okay if you have some dirty dishes in your sink and you get to it every couple of days. Those are not the important things. The important things are the moments you spend with your children and where you are connecting with your kids. But we don't want you so burned out that all you can do is stare at your phone at the end of the day because you can't people anymore. You can't adult anymore. And
right.
that's where that guilt sets in because we get in these negative patterns of trying to live up or be what somebody else thinks we need to be because we're focusing on the wrong things.
That makes a lot of sense. Your next post was, did you experience guilt as a child? And I think a lot of people did. I did
It,
not. I
it was a
don't I
form
don't think
it was a form of control and manipulation
it still is.
in parenting,
Yeah.
because it oftentimes gets kids to cave to
Hmm.
your needs. It's emotional immaturity on the adult's part.
I witness it in a current relationship that shall go unnamed.
Yeah,
But yes,
yep.
it's
It's common. I see it. I mean, I was on the plane this weekend and I heard it
oh,
and you can you can sense it and kids feel heartbroken over it and they desperately want to please their parents. They want to please their parents. Even if you have a child that you're like, there's no way my kid doesn't care about pleasing me. They do.
mhm.
At the heart of it, they want to please you. And you are using that caretaker um, role where they really love and trust you and everything, and you're manipulating it to your advantage.
Yeah, no, that's gotta be awful. I mean, especially if that's a situation where you grew up. I mean, it's hard to not transfer that. I'm not going to call it a skill, but I have no other word. Like it's a learned behavior, right?
It's a
So if it was,
habit.
yeah, if
Mhm.
it was done to you, you're
Yep.
far more likely to do it to your
Oh,
children as well.
yes. 100%.
Yeah.
You're even if you promised to yourself when you
Hmm.
grew up you would never do it. There's going to be times that it'll come out and you'll be like, who just said that? My mother just came out of my mouth
Right.
or my father just came out of my mouth. And that's because it's what you grew up with, right? those
Right.
those those behaviors are ingrained in us and you have to make a conscious effort to do different and catch it and apologize and do differently next time and really come up with a plan. What are you going
And
to
that
do differently?
that's the well, okay, so how does someone come up with a plan to do things differently?
Okay, I don't know that I can give a general answer for that
Okay.
only because it's different for everybody. right?
Okay.
So that's where we kind of
Sure.
go down the path of talking about where you are emotionally, what kind of things you're doing in your day, and setting up a plan that fits for you. So that's not going to be like a blanket answer that's going to work
Mhm.
for everyone. Sorry.
Okay.
That's why
That's
you got to hire
fair.
me to coach.
That's right. If you want into the real nitty-gritty of how to help you be a better parent, you got to get Kristin on your side. Kristin, the next question is, do you allow strangers to make you feel guilty? And I
Yeah.
think this kind of coincides with a recent episode, The Judgment Zone,
Mm.
because if you're being judged, sometimes that can make you feel guilty,
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Like I'm talking at the grocery store when your kid's having a
Yeah.
meltdown.
Yeah. Um,
And you get the clerk or the I always feel like it's old people, and I apologize if it's not, but I always feel like it's the older generation that is always like, "Oh, rough day, huh?" And you're like, "Ah, thanks." Or,
yeah,
they just
not
give
helpful.
me
I'm
like a
like, I've done
non-helpful
all the
comment.
things,
Yeah,
done all the things already, and this is the last thing I have to do.
right. Yep, exactly. Or like I'll never forget, my oldest son is really big. I mean, he's 6'5" now, so he was really big as a young child too. And I remember an old man saying something to me in the checkout line at the grocery store, and he was like, "He's not in school yet, huh?" And I was like, "He's 3. Thanks."
He's 3. Leave him
Well, snap.
alone.
I just get a cupcake instead. Something I don't, like be
Yeah,
helpful.
like maybe I'll give him some M&Ms.
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So I think it's difficult. And one of my posts on your the the hold on. One of my comments on the Parenting Village post about guilt was like, I think guilt is totally fine unless it's someone using guilt to manipulate you, which is what we just talked about. But a
Yep.
lot of times it's really hard because sometimes the people who are using the guilt or judging, they're not related to you. They're like total strangers.
Mhm.
And so
They're trying to make
how do
it
you
comfortable
slough
for
that off?
them. They're trying to make it comfortable for them. They really don't care about you and your
Which is
kid.
so bizarre because I'm like,
They're
why do you even care about me? You don't.
right. They're gonna leave and they're gonna go to their car and you're never gonna see them again. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. But I think if you are somebody who is a people pleaser, that's what that post was about. Are you a people pleaser?
Oh.
And if you are a people pleaser, you're going to be seeing these things everywhere, right?
Mhm.
And you're going to really notice when people at the park, people at the grocery store, your friends, your parents, your partner's parents are making comments or things, and that's going to have a hard effect on your parenting because I think you're always going to feel judged and you're always going to feel guilt because you can't please everyone.
So how can we learn from the guilt?
Um, I would tune in to when you feel guilty
Hmm.
and start asking questions. Okay, why am I feeling guilty about this? Am I doing what's best for me and my child in this moment?
Hmm.
If the answer is yes, let it go.
Okay.
It does not matter. If the answer is maybe or I'm not sure, let's investigate. And if the answer is no, okay, what's a different option? How can we choose this differently? I think guilt can be a lesson for us. Why do we feel off here? Why is it that
Hmm.
we are feeling this? Why are we carrying this around? But I would definitely get curious about it, face it head on, and come up with a plan to move on away from that and to create new habits around it.
Awesome. I love that. We've got to face it head on. Well, friends, you've been listening to Parenting with Heart with Kristin Schmoke, parenting coach. Um, and she's here with us on a regular basis as part of Two Monicas and a Microphone Productions. I don't know what we're calling ourselves now.
I love it. Let's do it. We're going with that.
Yeah, we're going with that. But we're trying something new here, and we're going to try to drop episodes weekly to give you tidbits of information. We do hope that listening to Kristin's commentary on guilt, how to overcome it, how to face it head on, and what causes it has helped you and given you a little bit of insight in your life. You can find Kristin Schmoke at KristinSchmokeCoaching.com.
Just Kristin.
But anyway, you can find Parenting with Heart anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can find us here on YouTube weekly with our faces. Yay! All right, Kristin, thank you so much for your time, and I'll catch up with you next week after my guilt-free mom cruise.
Heck yeah. I can't wait to hear all about it. And I'm always
Okay.
happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Sounds good. Okay.